Oh, guys. Hello, this is Dr. Darren, and this is No Mask, No Medicine. This is when I shed my mask, and I get to share some thoughts on life, on medicine, after my 36-hour shift. My first thought, or dot, is about microtraumas. So coming up here, it was going to be this Saturday, but the next Saturday is what we call the Big Freeze. I started it 6 years ago. And this is just a little challenge that I was bored. I moved out in the Midwest 6 years ago. And in the winter, everything kind of just shuts down. It's Midwest is very agricultural centered. There are huge metropolitan areas, but everywhere else outside of that, it kind of shuts down. Anyways, so I just like doing weird, crazy, fun things. You can look at my FAST Foundation, everything like that. Really focus on serving other people. But this was really just about freezing your tush off and doing something just bonkers crazy, right? So in America, there is something that's called the polar plunge. And that is basically when people get together and they jump into some body of water in the freezing cold. And I thought to myself, well, that's cool. But what if we upped it a game? We upped it a little. And so I came up with this event. We call it the Big Freeze or the Yeti Challenge. And that is where we have to run a 5K, and the finish line is in the frozen water. And we'd always joke around and say, you're not finished until you're frozen. I just instantly did a post on my Instagram kind of telling the motivation behind it. And really what it is it's these micro traumas. And the purpose I do it is to really put myself and to help my daughters go through these micro traumas, these controlled events that are difficult. They're scary, and they force us to overcome things, to try to find whatever we can inside the tools, the strength, the mental capacity to overcome challenges. And so now we've done it 6 years. So that's 6 points of reference for my daughters. 6 times where my kids have had to muster up the gumption to run, to serve others, and to freeze their tushies off. And every time they say they're not going to do it, and every time they do it, and every time when they come out of the water, they're laughing and grinning, and they are stronger. And it's a controlled micro trauma. And that the principle is applicable so much to life, and just about how we need to put ourselves through periods of growth. We need to raise our hand in class. We need to take that opportunity that might stretch us, that might be uncomfortable, to volunteer for this or to volunteer for that, to say no for those things if that's what stretches you. Maybe saying yes comes too easy for you, and saying no is a challenge. But as we do that, they go through those micro traumas. One, we always have fun. Yeah, maybe not. One, we're always challenged, and through the principle of growth, we always will grow and we'll be better. We'll learn from it, and it'll benefit us and those around us and our future. So, man, put yourself through micro traumas. Okay, thought for dot number 2 is board games. I'm not sure if it's much of a pastime anymore, but in my family, I grew up playing board games. We'd have big summer reunions where all of my family would get together. I've got 8 siblings, and all of their husbands and all the wives and their spouses, and their kids, and all my parents and their siblings and all their kids and their significant others and kids, and big reunions. And the main source of entertainment was always board games. Okay, so last night I was scrolling through my Instagram feed, and I came across this gentleman who just followed me. And I forgot his name, but his link to his Instagram and his podcast will be in the descriptions below. But it was called the Dead and Dad Official. And the name of it caught me, so I clicked on it. I wanted to see. I always try to figure out and learn more about the people that are following me. And this gentleman, he plays this board game. He started this challenge. It was called 365Good247Great. And it was so beautiful in its simplicity. Basically, he made this handheld board game, this spinning wheel, almost like the twister wheel, where you have a section. There was like 6 sections. And it was all about doing good. And there was like good for your health, good for your physical health, good for your mental health, good for your environmental health, good for others. And then there was one, good riddance, like get rid of something bad in your life. And the challenge was so simple. It was at the start of your day, you spin it. And whatever happens, it lands on it. That's what you focus on trying to accomplish that day for good. And I love that, because sometimes in life, we're overwhelmed with trying to be good at everything. We want to not suck at everything. And sometimes it is so difficult to do that. It just reminds me when I was in medical school, I felt like I just was trying to fail less in all areas and not succeed great in others. So I was in medical school trying to be a good doctor, and I was a father and a husband. And sometimes I felt like if I spent energy in this area failed. And sometimes I would get overwhelmed, and I know that I have a lot of patients that we get overwhelmed with all the to-do lists and things that we want to do. And I love the simplicity of this 365 Good 24/7 challenge, and I love it. And so I might try to implement it in my family, because my kids have inherited a love for board games, because that's what we do, because it's an amazing form of entertainment and communication, and I can spend great quality time with my kids. All right, that's thought for dot number 2. Thought for dot number 3, I want to share a recent experience that I had with death. Okay, it actually had nothing to do with a patient of mine. This was an experience. I got a call from a colleague. And I'm an hour away from the place that I usually work at, is where I live. And I do these 36-hour shifts. And I got a call from this gentleman who informed me that his uncle had died. And I was in the middle of playing actually board games, spending time with my family. And I wasn't scheduled to work for another 3 days. So I was on my off stretch. And I really cherish those off times with my family, because they're critically important to me. And so he asked if I could come in because I was the closest. He had asked all these other physicians, and he wasn't able to get there. And now I was perceiving this individual's experience through my culture's eyes and my Western eyes. And so my immediate response was, yeah, I want to help you. Internally I'm like, but man. And it was about 8 o'clock at night, and it would be an hour drive, and then I would do a 12-hour shift. His shift was over in 12 hours. And it didn't make sense to me why he couldn't finish the shift, because the difference of 12 hours is not that great. But I was looking through these eyes that were protective of my family's time. And in Western culture, right, sometimes the funeral is a week later, 3, 4, 5, 7 days, depending on the things. They can preserve that body. And that was that resistance to help out was fleeting, because I want to help out, and I want to be in a position that if I'm ever in that I can get there. So I just was switched off by that gentleman. This gentleman is from India, and he is a Muslim. And we got to talking. He thanked me to come in and covering his shift. It wasn't a big deal. And obviously I felt great about helping out, and I'm grateful for that opportunity. But the lesson that I learned through it is that he shared with me that in his culture and in his religion, that there's 2 major points that he shared with me. He said one is that in their culture that they try to do the burial as fast as possible. In Western culture, we do this embalming process, which is we try to preserve the body. And there's a whole cultural thing behind that. I'm actually doing a video on what the possibilities and what our legal rights of that body are in America and different states. It's phenomenal when I started learning about why we do embalming and what the practice is behind it, what the benefits, the cons, and what we're actually allowed to do out of respect for the body. Unbelievably options. We do not have to do what everybody else does. It's crazy. Anyways, but I learned from this gentleman that their culture is as soon as possible that body needs to be in the ground. And so I did not aware of that. So my hesitation that, well, what's 12 hours? To him, that 12 hours is 12 hours of not respecting his religion and 12 hours of not respecting his culture. And that completely just changed I feel guilty that I had that hesitation. Even if it was brief, I felt guilty that I didn't immediately say absolutely, because if there was a predicament that was arised in my life that made me have to not live my religion and my culture as quickly and as strongly as I could, that would be frustrating to me. Okay. And step 2, he said that in his culture, that when their families have bad or heavy or really important news to deliver, the whole family gathers together, and it's the eldest sibling in that family that delivers that news. And he was the eldest sibling. So they could not notify the family of the death of his uncle until he was there to make that announcement as a family. And that, again, I did not know that. So the whole lesson here, and then what I wanted to share with you guys, is that, man, open our eyes. We need to be willing to see other people's perspective from their views, because there are many backgrounds and many cultures and many views. And I am humbled to have learned from this gentleman and his culture and his religion. And I'm grateful that I was able to help him out. And I'm grateful that he thanks me. It's an honor to be able to help him. And so I've grown from that. And so that was a wonderful experience I wanted to share with you. Okay, thought for dot number 4 is, I think I've shared this before, but it is on failure. Guys, so currently I'm working on a book. I'm on 100 pages. I've been writing for a year now. Writing is tricky, man. It's so hard. But it's on failure. And it's about how we have to have this mental shift. And fail is not a 4-letter F word. It is not a bad word. And we have defined it in our lives. We've developed this inherent belief that if we fail, we suck. We're less important. We're less valuable. We are less of a human. And that is so wrong and backwards. Guys, I have failed so many times. And I'm not talking about tiny fails. Big fails. Multi-$100,000 fails. Awful, life-shattering, horrible fails. Okay? To everyday fails. We have to look at these fails almost like these microtraumas, right? These fails have to be shifted in our mind. We don't fail, right? And we got to choose how we spell fail. It's not S-T-O-P, right? It's not the end all. It's not stopping. It's S-T-E-P. It's step. It's stepping. It's got to be a change. We have to believe that when we fail forward. And we can choose to use that fail as a fire to move to the next thing, to grow, to be better. We have that choice to use that experience for our betterment, for our empowerment, for the upliftment of others in our life as well. And it is painful, and it hurts, and it sucks, and they're dark. But if we have the belief already established in our mind that failing is an opportunity, it is a moment in time to improve our situation, that it's not a drop, it's not a fall backwards, it is not a mark of our standard or our status in society or our value as a person, but it's an explosion of opportunities. If we have that inherent decision and culture in our mind, bro, man, the opportunities are unfreaking believable on what we can accomplish, because we're built to grow. Down to the physiological microbiology of our human bodies, stresses, microfractures, traumas, they induce growth in the body, nerve growth development, muscle growth development. Okay, that applies to everything: spiritual, emotional, physical, social, financial, everything growth. So fail is not an F word. Just remember that. Fail is not an F word. If you can remember that in your mind, when it comes, it's going to be that much more empowering for you to get through what you're getting through, because failures do happen every day, all the time. And sometimes big failures come. Anyways, that was a long No Mask, No Medicine. I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please consider subscribing. But I gotta go. Knuckles. What about you?